Let me introduce you to our speaker today. And I've been screwing up her name, and she corrected me yesterday in the session. So I'm good with that. So this is Dr. Dave, and today we're going to have Denna M. Davis. And she has great certification as a Scrum Master. She has an ACC, which is really amazing stuff. And she's a member of the Maxwell Leadership Certified Team. She's a founder of Agile Nibbles, right? And this is a great initiative that she started to be the change she wants to see, right? And so, as a speaker, trainer, and facilitator, she offers bite-sized nibbles about transcendent leadership, and I think that's what our topic is today. Can't wait to hear what Denna has to bring for us. And so, I want you to just let's just give her a warm welcome, and Denna, take it away. It's all about you, and I'm going to put us in speaker mode so you could be front and center. So you go for it.
All right. And I am going to share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes, we can.
All right, good stuff. Well, again, I am Denna Davis. This is a culture of belonging. Let me go in the last second seat. Yeah, there we go. And this is the Transcendent Leadership Talk Part 2. I want to thank Agile for Humanity, specifically Dr. Dave, for allowing me the opportunity to continue the conversation of this topic that I'm so very passionate about. And we're going to jump right in. Okay, so what I want you to walk away with in your bag today, I want you to, we're going to review those hazards of stressful environments. We're going to explore the different benefits of a culture of belonging, and we're going to experience 3 of the 5 levels of connection. And as far as the expectations and the why of this talk, you can expect this is going to be real, raw, and personal. In fact, I do bring up specifically Christianity and trauma very briefly. And so if those things make you uncomfortable, you are more than welcome to take yourself out for a moment. And this is also going to be interactive and engaging. So there will be a time at the end of the session where we're going to kind of get together in little groups and experience some things firsthand. And as far as the extended why for this talk, I am a person who has been deeply motivated by transcendent leaders and gravely injured by uninspired leaders. And so instead of complaining about it, I decided I wanted to be the change I wanted to see. So I started Agile Nibbles as a way of doing that. And as a reminder to say, hey, every leader leaves a mark. Whether it's devotion or disdain is a matter of growth. So this talk today is inspired by 3 different books. John C. Maxwell's 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, which reminds us that potential is a word based on possibilities, but possibilities are not guaranteed. So true growth must be intentional. Also, Ask Powerful Questions by Will Wise, who encourages us to go deeper in our conversations because traditional questions are virtually meaningless when it comes to establishing a connection. And finally, Dr. Dave's book of Belonging and Healing. Yes, that very Dr. Dave, who shows us how Ubuntu principles can help improve the psychological and physical well-being. All right. So real quickly, as Dr. Dave mentioned, this is a conversation that began with the lightning talk that was 10 minutes. So I'm going to do a really quick recap. So that topic is about transcendent leadership. And what is that? That means being inclusive. And this is not an exhaustive list, but inclusivity means valuing all of your teammates, inviting diverse perspectives, having a culture of belonging, which we'll talk about today, and asking powerful questions. And so, by the way, if you're thinking, part 2, how many parts are there? Well, there you go. There are 3 other things that I would love to continue this conversation on, and that is about valuing teammates, inviting diverse perspectives, and asking powerful questions, which all will come with their own interactive portions. All right, and then the 5 levels of connection are at the very bottom: intention, which says, I'm willing to know you; rapport, which says, I see you. That's Ubuntu, or like Avatar, if you like the movie Avatar, Owo Nagata Kame. Openness, which says, I hear you. Listening, which says, I get you, okay? And empathy, which says, I feel with you. And the thing about empathy is if we allow empathy to kind of permeate our lives and extend outward, we expand our world. Because no matter what business you're in, I promise you, you're in a business that is by people, creating products and services for people. All right. Now, it feels like I went really fast in that recap. You're not wrong. I did it intentionally. There's a replay, though. You can see the replay of that 10-minute lightning talk on agileforhumanity.org. And if you go and search for the Agile for Humanity 2023 conference, you will see not only my talk, but all of the talks that happened there that day. I'm telling you, it's worth your time. At the very least, take a nibble of those keynotes. You will not be disappointed, I promise you. But also, you can see this replay on Agile Nibble's YouTube channel, and that is YouTube.com/@AgileBytes. Okay, and we have reached our very first breathing segment. There will be a few of these going throughout this session because since I will be getting a little bit real and raw, there might be things that will be exposed, and I just want to give everybody an opportunity to blow that out. So I'm going to tell you how we're going to do this. We're going to have 2 quick breaths and then 1 long one. So you're going to breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, in through your nose, out through your mouth, and a big one in and out. And I promise you, these breaths are going to help me a lot. They're also going to help you because generally when you hear a speaker, you kind of get the energy that they're putting out. So I want to make sure that I stay calm throughout this whole process so you can enjoy this process in here. All right. When we talk about a culture of belonging, I first want to figure out, what does belonging mean to you? So what I'd like for us to do is, I have a Menti board set up. I have 2 questions on that Menti board. The first one is about belonging. So what I want you to do is go to www.menti.com. And if you're on your phone, this is going to be a little bit tricky. I admit that, but it is possible. So head on over to your Menti board. And I'm going to switch screens. That's www.menti.com. And the code is 3460-9008. And let me see, how do I share, change my screen. There we go. Are y'all still with me? You can still see my screen? Okay, no, screen sharing has stopped. Let me share again. Perfect. All right. I want to show you what you're going to see when you get to Menti. You're going to see a list of 6 options. So if you enter in 1 word and hit submit, then you will get just that 1 word added to the board. But if you enter in all 6 words, and you can enter in as many options as you like, and then hit submit, and then those words will begin to permeate. All right, so let's go back here. Share. Perfect. Can y'all still see the screen? See the board? Tell me what you're seeing. Do you see the words popping up?
I could see them.
Okay, perfect. All right, good stuff. So we're getting things like compassion, healing. I love that. Ubuntu. Loved, security, welcomed, accepted, empathy, inclusion. Good stuff. This is all good stuff. Support, compassion. All right. Seems like we paused a little bit. Got about probably. That's really good. Acceptance is getting a lot of love right now. Love that. All right. This is really, really, really good. Now, the thing about the reason I asked this question of what is belonging to you is because before we can figure out what belonging doesn't look like, we need to know what belonging first looks like. What does it look like to us? It looks like comfort, being respected. It looks like healing. It looks like compassion and presence. This is what belonging looks like. And can y'all see that screen? Are we back to do you say it's back at the shared presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So the thing about belonging is when we have a lack of belonging, we start to feel stressed. we start to feel pressured. And you may know this because if you go to Amazon and do a search on books about stress, you will find hundreds of books that tell you that stress is a killer. In fact, there are 6 chronic diseases that are linked to stress. And so that second question that's going to come up, if we go back here, I want you to go to that very next question. I want you to take a guess. What are the 6 leading diseases caused by stress? What do you think they are?
High blood pressure, stroke.
Go ahead and enter it into that Menti. If you go back to your Menti board, there's a second. There you go. Heart attack. Yeah. Okay. What else? Diabetes, stroke, cancer. That's good. Heart disease, hypertension, depression, obesity, HBP. I'm not familiar with that one.
High blood pressure.
Yes, I am familiar with that one. Just not in this acronym form. That's good stuff. Suicide. Good one. Yeah. Anxiety. Yeah, this is really good stuff. So you guys are very acutely aware. And so I want you to, again, remember those items that you listed as belonging. When we don't have that belonging, when we start to feel overstressed, according to the American Psychological Association, stress is linked to heart disease, as was mentioned, cancer, lung ailments, accidents, cirrhosis of the liver, and suicide. Those are the 6 leading causes of death linked to stress. And by the way, this is just me pontificating. Those accidents are, would you say that they're associated to lack of focus, lack of concentration? The cirrhosis of the liver, possibly over drinking to get that day away from you. According to the Center for Disease Control and the National Institute on Occupational Safety and Health, the workplace is the #1 cause of life stress. And it really does not have to be that way. So, okay, now we have this information coming in. Before we move on to the next segment, we're going to breathe again. It's going to be 2 short breaths, 1 deep one. So here we go, in through the nose, out through the mouth, in through the nose, out through the mouth, and 1 big one in and out. Stress can be a killer. Breathing is something that absolutely helps to relieve some of that stress. But here's where things get real. I want to go into my story. I want to share with you my journey. A lot of people have asked me, Denna, why in the world did you resign from your job? And I tell them in one word, belonging. But here's the thing. My mother always told me that there are 3 sides to every story. Mine, yours, and floating like a river between them, the truth. And the thing about the truth is it nourishes both sides because both sides are speaking what they see available to them from their perspective. And in addition to that, we also have an opportunity to take a bridge to the other side and see in the form of communication. But we don't always choose that option. And so we sometimes get stuck on our perspective. So I say that knowing that this is about to be a crucial conversation. Some things that I will reveal in my story will be hard, but this is what I don't want. What I don't want is for this to sound like a pity party, because it is absolutely the opposite. These are the facts of my story from my perspective. I also don't want this to be a public pulpit. If you're ever in church, you get the pastor talking about something that happened in the church over the pulpit, that person doesn't get an opportunity to respond or reply. It is a bully pulpit, as it's called. But that is not what I want here. The reason I'm sharing my story is because of awareness. I want to draw attention to something that may be getting overlooked in our corporate environments. Also, this is not about me dragging my baggage out for everyone to see and exposing it just for the sake of shock and awe. This is an opportunity for empowerment. My story and my journey, I hope, will give someone something that they didn't have before. that sense of this is what I can do because she did it. And finally, there are no heroes and villains here. I know that in my own mind, I'm always walking around with my cape because I'm part of the Justice League, okay? But there are no heroes and villains here. It's all about perspective. From that side of perspective, they are a hero to someone else. And I may be a villain. So we don't want to put those labels. It is just about perspective. And this is also about an opportunity for growth, because both I and the parties that I mentioned had an opportunity for growth, and we did. Okay. So my story begins with a narration. I want you to imagine with me. Imagine that you're going to an event, and it's a white event where everyone is coming dressed in white. You arrive to the venue, and it's a huge glass building with a door, and it's so tinted pristinely that it's like a mirror. You can't see in, but you can see your reflection, and you look good. And as you get closer to the door, you hear this commotion over to the right. You look over, and there you see a gigantic pig pen full of sloppy, wet mud and people running around, chasing pigs, diving into the mud, getting soaked through and through. Now, you see yourself again in the mirror. You, in your pristine white, you don't want any part of that pig pen or any of those mudders. So you start to hurry a little bit. And as you reach the door swings open, and out comes one of those mudders, and you collide. And they're bigger than you are, so you tip back. And then they reach out to stabilize your fall and grab you. And in that moment, they recognize you, and you recognize them. It's someone that you absolutely despise. But they pull you in as if you were a friend that they haven't seen forever, hug you, kiss your cheek. Now you are covered in your white outfit, sloshed with mud, front, side, back, and face. I want you to hold on to whatever thought or emotion came up with this imagery. Hang on to it for just a moment, because we will return to it. And I will go into my story. So if I told you that I was 5 years old, would you believe me? And I know for some of you who know me, the few who know me would probably say that would probably explain a lot. But let me tell you, it is absolutely true. I consider myself to be 5 years old. You see, I used to be a suicidal depressive. And I was depressed because of years of childhood abuse. And that abuse, that trauma followed me in my life for years. I struggled in my career, in my marriage, and in my personal relationships. And in 2016, I once again tried to correct the mistake of my existence. But something amazing happened in 2018. I rededicated my life to Christ. And when that happened, I realized finally what was really happening. That trauma, those experiences were an anchor attached to my leg, dragging me down in the sea. And I had to break that chain so that I could start to move towards the person that I was created to be. So I did the hard work of rededicating and putting myself forward for my personal development. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how I was going to get it done, but I'm a person who loves tennis. So I reached for what I knew. Author Ash, a person I greatly admire, had a quote. It says, "Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can." And that quote became a mantra for my 2018. And with that quote in hand, I started doing the work. And sure enough, growth started to happen. I found a job, so excited, so elated, life was looking up. And I declared out loud, I decreed and I declared that I would never allow myself to hit rock bottom like that ever again. I would continue on until I reached that person that I was created and destined to be. Of course, anything that you declare with your mouth, I promise you, you're going to have a test on it. That's why words have power. Because how can you know what you say is true unless you have a test? So thus began the tests of the emergency faith-based system. Stress test number 1 came in 2020. That lovely job that I had just found and was so excited about, I lost it due to COVID. No problem. Dust myself off. I had lost 3 other jobs prior to that due to 9/11, twice, 2 other ones because of the stock market situation. I'd been there before. We kept it moving. And in 2021, I found another job. One I liked even better, one is a Scrum Master, which I love. And I began to thrive in that space. I started getting on LinkedIn, making all these lovely posts, trying to create visibility and credibility for my sphere and that sphere of influence. I started joining Agile associations like Agile in Color. I started making a name for myself. I was getting opportunities. I was getting engagements. It was amazing. Then came stress test number 2. Stress test number 2 came in the form of a bully. On one of those teams that I acquired was someone with power and authority. And they used that authority to influence the situation. They did not want a Scrum Master on the team. This was very problematic for me because it triggered me. I was being triggered to a memory of the abuse that I experienced as a child, plus all of the extra abuse that I experienced growing up from people who could see when you're broken, they think you're an easy target. And so they would come at you. I was being triggered. So every opportunity I had in one-on-ones with my supervisor, in one-on-ones with my manager, in Agile events, when I went to them, I would stay behind and ask the question, please, someone help me. What do I do about this bully? Because I was being triggered. It went on for months. And after about 7 months of swaying and stumbling, I decided, you know what, maybe it's time that I start looking for another job because my mental health is far more important to me than this job. And then came stress test number 3. A beloved sister of ours, she passed. And I was devastated, not just in the loss, but also because I didn't have the relationship that I wanted with her. I thought I had more time to have those incremental moments of just repairing what was there. But she ran out of time. And so off to the funeral we went. And there at the funeral, after the funeral at the restaurant, came stress test number 4, and it was a big one. So I want you to think back to that moment, this moment in your all white. You're in your all white. You hear the commotion over the side with those mutters. You're in a hurry now. The door opens up quickly, bump, tilt, grab, hug, kiss. This was me with my abuser, who was not supposed to be there. And in fact, he was being kicked out at the time that I was trying to rush in to avoid him. And we collided. And when we collided, everything went black. Now, if you're having a moment of trigger here, I want you to do me a favor and take a breath and hear the words that I'm going to say. This moment, this pressure was a blessing in disguise for me. I did not know it at the time, but this crucible of intense pain was what I needed to make to cause my transcendence. But I'm getting ahead of myself. In the moment, I absolutely did not see that. In the moment, I could not see it all. I lost focus, concentration. In fact, I was losing my memory. I thought that I had a tumor or something. I went to get an MRI. I had no balance or stability in my life. And all of this on the wake of that funeral. So I went back to work from bereavement. And the first thing I encountered was the bully from that team. Man, that was tough. And we had an encounter. And I said to my supervisor, you know what? If I stay here, I'm going to end up fired. So let me leave. Let me take a leave. And then off to a leave I went. And in this time, in this space, because if you're hurt physically, you go to a doctor. If you're hurt mentally, please go to a therapist. And this is what I did. I went to see a therapist. And in this space, I went through the work of trying to figure out what this was. People kept saying, Denna, you're depressed. And I was like, no, I know depression. I had that for 40 years, over 40 years. I know what that looks like. This is something completely different. And it built, that pressure kept building and building and building. I started dropping from those associations like Agile in Color. I ended up dropping from that association. I dropped from those events and all of that responsibility that I worked so hard to build up. I stopped posting on LinkedIn. I was disengaged now, trying to figure out what this was. It was almost like an episode of House, right? If you ever saw House MD, where those patients come in with those ailments, they have no idea what it is. They give them a treatment to help sustain them. but they can't give them the treatment until they know what it is, because the wrong treatment will cause more harm than good. So I did the work with my therapist, but we still had not reached what was causing all of these issues. But I had to go back to work. I had bills to pay. So I went back to work, and on my return, got with that team that had the bully and spoke to those teammates and was told they were under duress while I was gone. It was an unlikely situation where this person had so much freedom now to impose his will that they were overworked and super stressed. Now, it's one thing to bully me. It's another thing to bully somebody I care about. Now I went into mama mode. I was like the Mandalorian. I stood my ground, and this is the way. And so the next time I met with that bully on the team, and he tried to impose his way, I stood strong and I stood firm. And it was not quite the right thing to do at the right time. It went very badly. It went horribly badly. And in the end, I left the team. And after that time, I continued to do the work with my therapist. And I ran into a friend of mine who was ex-military. And he asked me, what are those symptoms that you're talking about again? And I told him it felt like I am in constant survivor mode, like I'm running and hiding from a predator, living with memories over and over again. And he said, Denna, this sounds like PTSD. And when he said it, a light bulb went off. I was like, oh my goodness, why did I not think of that before? Of course it was PTSD. And so now, having the diagnosis of what it was, I went through the hard work of trying to just battle this thing back with my therapist, with my pastor. We went to work getting rid of this thing. And I absolutely got that freedom. And once I was myself again, if you will, I could think more clearly. I was able to concentrate. I was able to reinsert myself, but the damage was done in a lot of places. Those associations that I dropped from were hurt by my abrupt departure. Those engagements and those opportunities had dried up. And the posts were still there. I could still post, but my voice was not quite as loud anymore. And so that's okay. We continue on, we do the work. But this came right before performance review. So just as performance review was coming up, I thought to myself, I said to my sisters and also to my coworker, I was like, I don't think I'm going to get that promotion. There's been too much drama with that bully, and I took an extended leave. There's no way they're going to promote me. And sure enough, I did not get promoted. But I had been doing the work of personal growth, and I was now in my right mind. And I said, you know what? I want to make sure that next time I know what not to do. So let me ask them, just let me figure out what can I do better next time. So I got into a meeting with my supervisor, my manager, not to contend for my promotion, but to figure out what can I do better next time. And so my first question was this because of that issue with the bully and the extended leave? No, of course not. It had absolutely nothing to do with that. And that piqued my curiosity. Okay, so what did I do wrong? What can I do better? And there was hemming and hawing. We went back and forth a couple of times, me trying to just state some cases, them trying to bring some things to light. And then finally, my manager said, Denna, you were not promoted because you were no longer the Denna that we hired. Now, those words were painful to hear at first. And of course, I wanted to defend myself immediately because I'm part of the Justice League. You don't say that to people. Of course, I'm the same Denna. But later, I allowed a few days to soak that in and listen to those words, not dwell in it, not wallow in it, but really reflect on the actual words of what she said. You were no longer the Denna that we hired. And I thought, and I realized she was absolutely 100% correct, but not for the reasons that she thought. I was no longer the Denna that they hired. I was now a Denna that had experienced huge monumental disappointment for not being supported on that issue with a bully that was coming at me a lot of times. In fact, my supervisor came and audited one of my daily stand-ups in the over a year that I was with that team. I was also a Denna who was now apathetic because based on the experiences that I had with that encounter, I was forming the conclusion that maybe they care more about the value in the bully than they cared about the value in my own mental health. I was also a Dina who had been excluded, but not just me, our little subset of a team from the bigger whole had been excluded from training, from opportunities. And when I asked about it, was told, oh, I got the directive from my higher ups to just focus on this side of the house. Okay, so you're leaving people out now. And so I was also a Dina that experienced a monumental case of PTSD that put me on my butt for weeks. And I was also a Dina that had been gaslighted by my delivery manager, who told me, and I quote, now I have to go to HR and report this guy because you called him a bully openly. And by the way, HR never reached out to me, which tells me he didn't go to HR because the bully was too valuable. So all in all, through all of this, I was a Dina that experienced a lack of belonging. You're broken, so you're no longer useful here. And as I thought about it, I realized I'm not just a Dina that was not that the different Dina. This is not the culture that was promised. But I'm grateful. I am so grateful for that experience because something else beautiful came out of it. From the crucible of this whole situation, all of these stress tests that have come after that declaration that I made in 2018, I am now activated. I am Wonder Twins activated into a new platform, a platform of trying to just shout from the rooftops to people on what it is to be a transcendent leader, a leader that leads with the heart and feels with people and brings forth that engagement, that true engagement. Because the thing about it is, the reason why this is also important is we never know what someone is going through, what they've been through, or the tests that they will face in the future. Because guess what? We're all going to continue to have these tests and trials. But the place that we come, the majority of the time, should not be the cause or the continued pressure in that situation. We're supposed to have 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of work, and 8 hours of downtime. But that middle 8 seems to bleed into those other areas. And if that area is a stressful environment, now we're talking about heart disease, cancer, lung ailments, accidents, cirrhosis of the liver, suicide. And this is not what we want. The workplace does not have to be the number one cause of stress in our lives. And by the way, I'm sure she is probably blushing a bright red right now. There was only one person on my team who reached out to help. And that was Melissa. She reached out to me and said, hey, Dina, I see something is different about you. You have changed. What is going on? And I didn't want to talk about it at the time. And she was like, okay, we don't have to talk about it. This is what I'm going to do, though. I'm going to put a 30-minute meeting on our calendar. You don't got to come. If you don't want to come, cool. If you come, cool. But I'm just going to leave it there. And if you come and you don't want to talk, cool. But if you do want to talk, we can talk about whatever you want. Let me tell you, that was monumental to me. That was everything to me. It endeared me to Melissa even more. Now, we had already had a rapport. She was hired a few months after I started, and I asked her afterwards, I said, why in the world would you do that? Why would you create that space for me? And she was like, Dina, don't you remember? When I started, you were the one who created space for me. You allowed me to come and you created that space for me to come and ask anything I wanted. Even though I didn't know what I was necessarily doing 100%, I created that space because I knew what it felt like to want someone to help. And so I wanted to be the change I wanted to see. And so she created that space. She offered a platform where she just listened and she shared her empathy. And I'm telling you, it really did something beautiful for me and through me. All right, before we move on to this last section, we're going to have another breathing opportunity. And by the way, thank you, Melissa. And she's still supporting, showing up today. You can't teach this stuff, I'm telling you. And so let's breathe. 2 short breaths and one big one. So in through the nose, out through the mouth, in through the nose, out through the mouth, and one big one in and out. Man, that feels really, really good. As we start talking about a culture of belonging and getting into the healing portion, I want to bring to mind Brene Brown. She says, she defines connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued. Those three, that combination of three are very crucial. It's good to be seen. It's good to be heard, but we need a combination of that value in there as well. And when they give and receive without judgment, this is how you build rapport. This is how you build belonging. So in this healing portion comes from the book, Belonging and Healing by Dr. Cornelius. And it's a concept of Ubuntu. And to say that word properly, you got to dig into your African roots here. Just dig in, let it come from the soul. Ubuntu, you know? So real quick, a story associated with this. When I looked up Ubuntu, I found this amazing story where a teacher went to his students and said, I have a game for you guys. Over there, under the base of that tree, I have a huge basket of sweet fruit. Now, whoever can get to that basket of sweet fruit first will get to have the whole basket to himself. He said, now this is a race. And he counted them down and said, go. The children locked hands all together and they trotted over slowly to that basket. And they sat down as a group and began eating the fruit. And the teacher was shocked. And he went over and asked them, why? Why didn't one of you run off and get the basket first? You could have had all this fruit to yourself. And the children said, Ubuntu. I am because we are. That is just, it is so much to me. Ubuntu is a philosophy that started in South Africa from the Xhosa tribe by Archbishop Desmond Tutu. It encapsulates aspirations to live well together, to see everyone as fully human and valuable, right? To treat others as having immense worth. And Ubuntu brings gratitude. Now, if we can all incorporate Ubuntu into our organizations, we would have more successful organizations because Ubuntu is about healing. It's about togetherness. It's about unity and community. Why is belonging important? Some of the things that you guys put on that word cloud: acceptance, inclusion, identity. It's a partnership and a collaboration that reveals blind spots. In fact, through some of those times with sitting with Melissa in those 30-minute meetings, I would think about things like, oh man, I could have done that better. I could have done this better. Not as a way of beating myself up, but getting clarity as we kind of talk through things when I eventually started talking. Physical health is linked to those mental things that happen. Our body starts to feel those things because our mind puts out a pollution, if you will, when we are under duress, under the wrong kind of stress. So healing in and of itself is an antidote to trauma. Now we're going to take some exercises. Yeah. This is the exercise portion. This is the group portion. And I'm going to kind of stop sharing here. Oh, stop sharing. I wonder what you won't be able to see. So I'm going to explain this first and I'm going to stop sharing so you can go into our groups. So I have 3 images here, as you can see. The first is of a woman with a baby. The second is of women in tutus. The third is of a woman packing or unpacking, a woman with her luggage. Now, I didn't intend to just do all women. It just kind of happened that way. That was beautiful. But what I want you to do when you get into your teams, I want you to narrate the story. What is happening in this image? Much like I narrated at the beginning of my story. Who is this woman with the baby? Is that her mother? Is that her aunt? Is it a friend? Who are these women in their tutus? Is this a performance? Is this the beginning of the performance, the end of the performance? What performance is it? And so on and so forth. So here is the catch, though. One of you will be muted. The muted person will be the actual narrator of the story. All right, good stuff. So now what we're going to do is do it as a group. We're going to, the activity is this. We have 3 images. And let me share my screen again, these images. 3 images here. One of a woman with a baby. One of women in tutus. And one of a woman with her luggage. And so the question is, what's happening in these images? What is the story behind these images? And so I'll be the narrator. I'll be telling the story with the catalyst of I'm going to be muted. So that means you won't be able to hear my words. You have to decipher the story based on my gestures. And I have to come up with a full story using only my gestures. And this activity is used to kind of mimic what it's like to not be heard at work or in environments. All right, so let me stop sharing. I know which one I'm going to do. And now I'm going to mute myself.
The ballerina. She's dancing,
Prancing around the stage.
Performing. Mhm.
performing, doing ballet,
On a
like
wake.
on a lake, water, like Swan Lake.
Swan Lake. Swan Lake. And this is the finale.
And that's it. That's the story. Now that one, I tried to make it a little more simple. But how is that for you guys? When you're seeing someone trying to tell a story, what things come up for you? I know you've already said some things off camera, but I like to get this conversation here.
I guess
Well,
it's the
for me, it
listening
was-
part. Go on ahead.
No, you go for it, Patrick. I'll go after you.
Okay, I guess it's the listening part. You find out that usually when you interact with people, when they speak, you want to respond almost immediately. So you end up interrupting, and you don't get the message they're trying to convey to you. What this shows you is if you could just be still, be calm, you might actually hear and figure out what exactly they're trying to get to. So it goes to that whole thing in project management, better to be an active listener. It helps you become a better project manager.
So good.
Your turn, Melissa.
I'm going to add here in terms of culture and context, because I think even with listening, there are limitations, because there are people who are not interested in ballet and they would not be able to guess what Swan Lake is. And this is also the issue that we have with belonging in certain companies where people hire for cultural fit, because they hire people who will fit in and understand the context. So I think when you're listening, you always put your lens on it. And if you do not have a lens of understanding or knowing anything about the ballet, then I will not hear or understand your story.
So good. Go ahead, Melissa.
Oh, I was going to say, from my point of view, we did in the small groups, I was the narrator. So having done it in the larger group, it felt, I took the activity differently, like it felt different knowing what you had been through and being like, that is really hard what she's doing. I want to, try to support her in that. And so it is a different, like just kind of seeing that activity both times. It was very frustrating to be the person not being heard. And then I wanted to be able to elevate your voice on the other end to try to help you be heard. So it just kind of was interesting to how that felt both ways.
So good. Anything else?
One thing I observed, and this happened since I was a participant this time around, it brought me back to, and granted, we're all using Zoom for this meeting, but at work, right, we are heavy on Teams, Zoom, WebEx, some kind of a technology solution. And it brought me to thinking about how many times, and I'm a big advocate of being on camera, for meetings. I am on camera. A lot of folks don't do that. And in this particular situation, it was the reverse, but it's very similar, where you can see someone, but you can't hear them. And in my work setting, a lot of folks, you can hear them, but can't see them. So you're missing out on part of that interaction when they choose, so this would be a wonderful game to help reinforce the importance of being both heard and seen.
That's it. Those 5 senses working together. And so I want to know from the groups, what was the story that you guys told? From the team, the people before first, and then a narrator to see if they got it right. So from someone on one of your groups, who wants to share what the narrator was trying to convey?
I'm going to guess that Melissa was taking a trip. Well, she told us which picture it was, but I'm guessing that when she was getting on the plane, I thought I read her lips and I thought she said she was going to Greece. I could be wrong, and that's about it.
Melissa, was that correct?
I didn't say anything about Greece. I think I said I was going on a trip with friends, and I could see how that sounds the same. I did act out that I was doing picture 3, and basically I said I was going to go on a trip with friends to somewhere warm. Because eventually my trip tried to start to what can I act out in this small picture? So I think that was basically my story.
That's so this right here, listening is more than just like Patrick said, like everyone's saying, it is more than just hearing the words, but hearing the words is part of it. You hear the words and it helps to complete the story. This is so good. All right. So for the other team, who wants to talk about what was the narrator talking about? What did they give?
I nominate Taniola. She's so quiet. She's like a ghost.
Okay.
But yeah, it took a little second to pick up on what he was saying, but then eventually, picked up on the sense, taking a walk to get in the car, driving, taking a trip, get into a big house or a house at least, going in and being able to unpack his, the luggage. So, and then, at the end of the day, I realized if I ever had to play charades with cash, I got to get you on my team.
All right. So what was the story you were telling, MC?
It was the lady who was going on a trip. And for me, I could tell that she was arriving because all the clothes were nice and neatly folded. And because had she been departing, we know how it is. We just throw everything in the bag. It's rumpled up. It's a mess. But I could, by looking at that, and it looked like it was more of a vacation than anything else because there were sunglasses. There were other things that led me to believe that it wasn't a business trip, but it was a pleasure type of trip.
Okay, so that brings up an interesting.
I couldn't convey that, but that was my observation by just looking at the photo. That was going to be the story if I'd had room to to truly flesh it out.
So for me, that's so interesting right there. I want to move on to the next activity, but I want to pause right here for just a second. That is about perspective. What you just said. Did y'all catch that? He said she's absolutely arriving because when you depart, it's a mess. In my mind, she was departing. She was getting ready to leave. I like to be very neat when I leave. It's a mess when I come back because I done took everything out. I already wore it. For you guys, what are you a neat goer or a neat comer? So what do you get from that?
I actually thought she was just leaving because that's usually when everything is neatly arranged all together. After the trip, a few good drinks and stuff, you're just throwing things in like, I just realized I'm leaving tomorrow. And you just toss everything in there and sit down on it so you can lock it.
So that is so good. I want to continue on to our next activity, which is going to be a very, very, very quick one. And then I will close up. But I want to just thank you guys for allowing us to kind of rest in this one a little bit, because this brought out some really interesting things about perspective and about being heard and about listening. So very good. All right. Did I share my screen? Can y'all see my screen, my presentation? Let me go back. Let me hit share this time. Now I'm sharing. Now can you see it? Perfect, perfect, perfect. All right. So this very next activity that we're going to do is really quick. And we're going to be in groups of 2. And this is going to go very fast. We're just going to say one listener and one talker. The listener will say, what's on your mind? The talker will say, I'm experiencing, and then you're going to mention something that is real in your life, but short. Now, I want it to be real because when we talk about something that's really happening to us, it impacts what happens next, right? This exercise is about being valued and being heard. And so the talker will say, I'm experiencing difficulties tying my shoes. Then the listener will say, Ubuntu, in the name of the person they're talking to, I see you, I hear you, I feel with you, and I know that you are more than capable of finding a solution. And then the talker will simply say, thank you, and then you will switch. Now, in this exercise, if you hear something that you're like, oh, if somebody says, oh, I've been looking for a new place to go eat, you're going to have the advice monster is going to pop up and want to give some advice or give a solution or a resolution. That is not what this is about. Even if you know exactly what will help them in whatever they mention, this is simply about hearing them and valuing them. I'm experiencing, state what you're experiencing. Ubuntu, the person's name. I see you, I hear you, I feel with you, and I know that you are more than capable of finding a solution. And then say thank you, and that is going to be all. So we can put 2 minutes for this exercise. Let me stop sharing. So just really quickly, I would love to hear from 1 or 2 of you. Just how was that? How was that to be heard and valued? How was that for you?
So
Got a
for
thumbs
me,
up from Kenya?
I found it really comforting. It was, I don't know, it was just like, wow, just, yeah, it was calming, for whatever it is that the person had to say, as opposed to like jumping in with a potential solution or something.
I thought it was affirming also. Yeah, affirming.
So good. Anything else before we move on?
I think for me, it was just great to be able to say how I was feeling and not feel judged.
Woo, that's so good right there. I got chills on that. This is belonging, you guys. What we just did right there, that's belonging. Letting somebody have space at the table and telling them, I know that you're capable. I know that you are a valuable person. You're capable, but I'm going to give space for you. All right, let me go back to my presentation here and let's move on. I feel with you. Come on. All right, so last breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth, in through the nose, out through the mouth, and big one in and out. Man, this has been absolutely wonderful, but let me summarize real quickly. Transcendent leadership is about being inclusive. That means being intentional, saying, I am willing to know you. Having rapport, which says Ubuntu or O Nagatakame, I see you. Having openness, which says, I hear you. Listening, which says, I get you. And empathy, which says, I feel with you. And I know that in your spaces, maybe in your work environment, it may seem like a giant elephant-sized project to start incorporating some of these things. But how do you eat an elephant? That's right, one nibble at a time. So we are going to create a plan for our own personal growth so we can be the change that we want to see. And I offer 2 ways for that. The law of intentionality, which says growth must be intentional because it does not just happen. And the law of consistency, which says motivation gets you going, but discipline keeps you growing. Stay at it. And finally, let's incorporate more Ubuntu in our own lives. Find those places where we can just bring it in because I am, because we are. The lasting memory I want to give for you is this. We are all of us like coal. Coal is a resource of either consumption or luxury. And we can allow ourselves to be continuously chipped away and burned like a resource until we're nothing but ash. Or we can do the work of personal growth and development and allow that pressure, that the right kind of pressure, to bring us to our diamond status. And by the way, for those leaders out there, you don't have to burn people to ash, right? We can partner with them, help them through situations, because the tests and the trials are going to come. They're necessary. When I was in that soil, in that darkness, that was me as a seed drawing down my roots to a darker and more compacted place. That pressure was necessary for my seed to open and my diamond to shine. And by the way, here are my diamonds. So these are the books that I have been working on and am working on. By the way, you may recognize that third one over on the white, hey doing now, as the poster that's behind me. But this is what is coming from all of that stress, from all of that pressure. This is the diamonds that are coming forward. And I just want to encourage you all, by hashtag I'm writing, encourage you all to be the change you want to see. And if you're looking for a place to find your personal growth, come and join me every third Tuesday of the month. I do a meetup, a lunch and learn on Meetup for Agile Nibbles. This one coming up on Tuesday is about the law of awareness. You must know yourself to grow yourself. And finally, these are the ways that you can keep in touch if you would like. It'll be on recording. And I'm reminding you to lead with love. Be the change that you want to see, because every leader leaves a mark, whether it's devotion or disdain, is a matter of growth. Thank you so much for your time and your participation. I have truly been blessed by this. Thank you.